My name is David Chen and I'm a high school biology teacher from Portland, Oregon. I've been camping since I was a kid, summer trips mostly, but about 5 years ago I got really into winter camping. There's something peaceful about the woods when they're covered in snow, the way sound gets muffled, the way everything looks clean and untouched. I know some people think winter camping is miserable, all that cold and wet gear, but for me it's therapeutic. Or at least it was, until what happened in January of 2023. I'm telling you this because I know how it's going to sound. I know some of you are going to think we were just scared by an animal, or that we saw shadows and let our imaginations run wild. But I'm a science teacher. I deal in facts and evidence. And what we saw that weekend, what followed us through those woods, it wasn't an animal. It wasn't our imagination. And it definitely wasn't human. It was Martin Luther King Day weekend, so I had Monday off, which meant I could do a 3-day camping trip without using any vacation days. My wife Emily is a nurse, and she'd managed to get the same days off, which almost never happens. We'd been planning this trip for months. Mount Hood National Forest, about 2 hours east of Portland. There's this area near Trillium Lake that's absolutely beautiful in winter. Not too remote, which Emily appreciated since she's less experienced with winter camping than I am, but secluded enough that you feel like you're really out there in nature. We left Friday afternoon around 2 p.m., hoping to get to the campsite before dark. The drive up Highway 26 was beautiful. Fresh snow on the evergreens, clear blue sky. Temperature was probably around 25 degrees, which is perfect for winter camping. Cold enough that the snow stays powder, not wet and heavy, but not so cold that you're miserable even with good gear. We got to the trailhead parking lot around 4:15. The sun was already starting to sink behind the mountains, casting these long, purple shadows across the snow. There were 2 other cars in the lot, which was more than I expected for January. Winter camping isn't exactly a popular hobby. We geared up, loaded our packs, and started hiking in. The trail was well marked, easy to follow, even with snow cover. We were planning to go about 3 miles in, set up camp near the lakeshore where there's a good clearing. The forest was quiet. That's the first thing I always notice in winter. In summer you've got birds, insects, wind rustling through leaves. But in winter with all that snow, it's like nature hits a mute button. Our footsteps crunching through the snow and our breathing were the only sounds. Even the trees seemed to be holding their breath. We'd been hiking for maybe 45 minutes when Emily stopped. She was ahead of me on the trail and she just froze mid-step. I almost walked right into her. "What's wrong?" I asked. She pointed at the snow beside the trail. Those weren't there before. I looked where she was pointing and my stomach did this weird flip. Footprints, fresh ones, boot prints, adult-sized, coming out of the tree line and crossing our trail. They led off into the woods on the other side and disappeared into the darkness between the trees. Now this shouldn't have been alarming. We knew other people were camping in the area. We'd seen the cars, but something about these prints felt wrong. They were close together, like whoever made them had been standing still for a long time, just standing there in the trees watching the trail, and they crossed our path at an angle that suggested whoever made them had emerged from the woods specifically to intersect with where we'd been walking. "Probably just another camper," I said, trying to sound casual. "Taking a shortcut or something." Emily nodded, but she didn't look convinced. We kept walking. The sun was almost gone now and the temperature was dropping fast. We needed to get to the campsite and get the tent set up before full dark. Winter darkness comes on quick, and you don't want to be fumbling with tent poles in the pitch black when it's 20 degrees outside. We made it to the clearing by the lake at 5:30, just enough light left to work by. The lake was completely frozen, covered in a thick layer of snow that made it look like an extension of the forest floor. If you didn't know there was water under there, you'd never guess. The clearing was perfect, sheltered by a ring of evergreens, but open enough that we weren't directly under any branches that might dump snow on us in the night. Setting up a winter tent takes longer than a summer one. You've got to stomp down the snow first, create a solid platform. Then you've got to make sure all your stakes are secure, because if your tent blows away in a winter wind, you're in serious trouble. We worked quickly, our breath coming out in white clouds. By the time we got the tent up and our gear inside, it was full dark. We cooked dinner on our camp stove inside the tent vestibule. Nothing fancy, just dehydrated chili that we'd brought from home. But after hiking in the cold, it tasted amazing. We ate in silence mostly, too tired to talk much. I kept thinking about those footprints we'd seen, wondering if whoever made them was camped nearby, wondering if we'd see them at the lake in the morning. Around 8 p.m. we got into our sleeping bags. Even with all our cold weather gear, I could feel the chill seeping in around the edges. The tent fabric was already collecting frost on the inside. Emily fell asleep quickly. She always does. Me, I'm a light sleeper, in the best of circumstances, and camping makes it worse. Every sound seems amplified when you're in a tent, the wind moving through branches, snow sliding off trees and hitting the ground with soft thuds, your own heartbeat. I must have finally dozed off around 10, because when I woke up, it was 11:47 according to my watch. Something had pulled me out of sleep, but I didn't know what. I lay there in my sleeping bag listening. Emily was breathing slowly beside me, still asleep. Outside the tent, everything was silent. No wind, no animal sounds, nothing. And then I heard it. Footsteps, crunching through the snow, slow and deliberate, coming from the direction of the frozen lake. I held my breath. The footsteps were getting closer, not running, walking, each step placed carefully like whoever was out there wasn't in a hurry. They circled our tent, all the way around, a complete circle about 20 feet out. I could track the sound as it moved from the lakeside around to the forest side and then back toward the lake. The steps stopped, right at the lakeside of our tent, maybe 15 feet away. Just stopped. No sound of someone setting up camp, no light from a headlamp or flashlight, just silence. And the thing is, when you're winter camping and someone walks through snow and then stops, you can usually hear them breathing, especially in cold air. Breath comes out hard and visible. But I didn't hear anything, just that heavy winter silence pressing down on everything. I don't know how long I lay there listening. Could have been 5 minutes, could have been 20. Time does weird things when you're scared. Eventually I must have fallen back asleep because the next thing I knew it was morning and Emily was shaking me awake. "David," she was saying. Her voice sounded strange. "David, you need to see this." I crawled out of my sleeping bag and unzipped the tent. The morning was bright, sun already up and reflecting off all that white snow in a way that made me squint. Emily was standing a few feet from the tent entrance in her boots and jacket, her sleeping bag still half zipped around her legs. "Look," she said, pointing. There were footprints in the snow, dozens of them. They circled our tent in a ring maybe 15 feet out, a perfect circle. The prints came from the lake and went back to the lake. But here's what made my blood go cold. The prints didn't lead anywhere after that. They stopped at the lake's edge, just stopped, like whoever made them had walked out onto the ice and vanished. "Maybe they walked on the ice," Emily said, but her voice was shaking. "Covered their tracks with snow or something." I walked over to where the prints ended. The snow on the lake was undisturbed, perfectly smooth except for some wind patterns. No sign anyone had walked across it. I got down on my hands and knees and looked close. The prints that circled our tent were deep. Whoever made them was heavy. Adult male, probably, judging by the size and depth. But the stride length was wrong, too far apart. Like whoever walked around our tent was taking huge steps, bigger than normal human gait. We didn't talk much while we made breakfast. Instant oatmeal heated with water from our stove. We kept looking at those footprints. I took pictures with my phone even though I knew they wouldn't capture the wrongness of it all. The way the prints just ended, the way they formed that perfect circle. "We should head back," Emily said finally. I wanted to argue. We'd planned for 3 days. We'd driven all this way. But looking at her face, seeing the fear there, I nodded. "Yeah, let's pack up." It took us about an hour to break down the tent and repack our gear. The whole time I felt like someone was watching us, that prickling sensation on the back of your neck. But every time I turned around there was nothing, just trees and snow and silence. We started hiking out around 10 a.m. The trail was easy to follow in reverse. Our footprints from the night before were still clearly visible, 2 sets of boots heading in toward the lake. We walked in silence mostly, moving fast. Emily kept looking over her shoulder. We'd been hiking for maybe 30 minutes when I noticed something that made me stop in my tracks. There was a third set of prints following ours, following our exact path from last night, but in reverse. Large boot prints, same size as the ones that had circled our tent. They'd been laid down after our prints, I could tell, because they overlapped ours in places. Whoever had circled our tent had followed us on the trail out. "Emily," I said quietly, "don't look back. Just keep walking." But she'd already seen them. "David, someone followed us." "I know, keep moving." We walked faster. The prints kept following us, staying maybe 20 yards back based on where I could see them. Always the same distance. Never getting closer. Never falling behind, just following. About a mile from the trailhead parking lot, the following prints diverged. They went off the trail into the woods on the left side, just split off at a sharp angle and disappeared into the trees. I remember feeling this wash of relief. Whoever had been following us had given up, had gone off in another direction. But then about half a mile further, I realized something that made my stomach drop. We were walking through an area where the trail curved around a large cluster of boulders. The following prints had diverged before this curve. If someone had gone off trail at that point and cut straight through the woods, they'd come out ahead of us. They wouldn't be behind us anymore, they'd be in front. I grabbed Emily's arm. "Stop." "What?" "The prints. They went off trail to get ahead of us." We stood there on the trail, neither of us moving. I was looking at the bend ahead, trying to see around it, trying to see if anyone was standing there waiting. The forest was silent. No birds, no wind, just that heavy winter quiet that felt like the whole world was holding its breath. "What do we do?" Emily whispered. "We keep going, stay close to me." We walked around that bend, and I don't know what I expected to see. Someone standing in the middle of the trail, maybe. Someone wearing winter gear and a blank expression. But there was nothing. Just more trail, more trees, more snow. And then I saw them. Fresh boot prints on the trail ahead of us. The same large prints that had circled our tent. That had followed us. But these weren't behind us anymore. They were in front of us, leading away down the trail toward the parking lot. And they were placed at intervals that suggested running, not walking. Running. We didn't talk. We just moved. Faster than before. Almost jogging. Our packs bounced against our backs and the straps dug into our shoulders, but we didn't care. We just wanted out of those woods. The prints kept leading us forward, always ahead, always running, until we came around a final bend and saw the parking lot below us, maybe 300 yards away. And the prints stopped. Right there in the middle of the trail, they just stopped. No sign of anyone, no tracks leading off into the woods. Just nothing. We practically ran the last stretch to the parking lot. Our car was there, covered in a thin layer of fresh snow. The other two vehicles that had been there Friday were gone. The parking lot was empty except for us. We threw our packs in the trunk and climbed in, and I started the engine and cranked the heat. We sat there for maybe 5 minutes, not talking, just warming up and catching our breath. And then Emily said something that made every hair on my body stand up. "David, look at our car." I looked. The whole car was covered in snow that had fallen overnight, undisturbed, except for one spot. The driver's side window, where there was a perfect handprint melted into the frost. Someone had pressed their hand against my window, recently enough that the heat from their palm had melted the ice. The handprint was huge, easily twice the size of mine, and it had 6 fingers. We drove home and neither of us said a word the whole way. When we got back to Portland, Emily went straight to the shower and I sat at the kitchen table looking at the photos I'd taken. The circled tent, the prints that ended at the lake, the 6-fingered handprint on my car window. I thought about going to the police. But what would I tell them? That something with 6 fingers followed us in the woods? That footprints appeared and disappeared? They'd think we were crazy. Hell, I half think we were crazy. But I know what I saw. We both do. And I know that whatever circled our tent that night, whatever followed us on the trail, it wasn't human. It wore boots. It walked on 2 legs. But it wasn't one of us. Emily hasn't wanted to go camping since, winter or summer. Says she's done with the woods. And honestly, I don't blame her, because here's what keeps me up at night, those boot prints. The ones that circled our tent, the ones that followed us. They were Merrell Moab 2 hiking boots, size 13. The exact same boots I wear. I checked mine when we got home, checked the treads against the photos. Perfect match. Same pattern, same wear marks, same everything. Whatever was out there in those woods, it was wearing my boots, or boots exactly like mine. And it knew how to use them. Sometimes late at night I think about those footprints, about how they stopped at the lake's edge, like whatever made them just walked out onto the ice and disappeared. And I wonder if maybe that's where it came from, under the ice, under all that frozen water, something that's been down there waiting for winter, waiting for the lake to freeze solid enough to walk on, waiting for people like us to come camping. And I wonder how many pairs of boots it's collected over the years, how many campers it's followed, how many of them made it back to their cars. We were lucky, I know that. But sometimes when I'm alone in the house and I hear footsteps on the stairs or the sound of someone walking in the room above me, I wonder if that thing followed us home, if it's still watching, still waiting, still wearing my boots. Because the other day I found mud in the hallway, boot prints, size 13, Merrell Moab 2, and I've been home all day. My boots have been in the closet the whole time, dry and clean, but someone's been walking in my house and they're wearing my boots. My name is Rebecca Morrison, and I'm a freelance photographer based out of Bozeman, Montana. I specialize in landscape photography, particularly winter scenes. There's something about the way light hits snow that you just can't capture in any other season. I've been doing this professionally for about 8 years now, and I've spent countless nights alone in the backcountry trying to get the perfect shot. I'm telling you this so you understand. I'm not some inexperienced hiker who got spooked by shadows. I know these mountains, I know what belongs out there and what doesn't. What I'm about to tell you happened in February of 2024, and I know some of you are going to think I was suffering from hypothermia or altitude sickness, or that my mind was playing tricks on me in the isolation. But I was there. I felt what I felt. And I know that the cabin I stayed in that night, the cabin that saved my life, should not have existed. I'd been planning this trip for months. There's this area in the Beartooth Mountains about 40 miles southwest of Red Lodge, where you can get incredible shots of the peaks at sunrise if you're positioned just right. But it's remote, really remote, no trails, no cell service, just you and the mountains and about 15 miles of snowshoeing from the nearest plowed road. I left Bozeman on a Thursday morning in mid-February. Temperature was around 15 degrees, but the forecast was clear for the next 3 days. Perfect conditions. I drove to the trailhead, geared up, and started hiking around noon. I was carrying a pretty heavy pack, camera equipment, tripod, winter camping gear, food for 4 days, probably close to 60 pounds total. But I've done heavier. This was nothing I couldn't handle. The first day went perfectly. Clear skies, minimal wind. The snowshoeing was tough, but I made good time, and by late afternoon I'd covered about 8 miles. I set up camp in a sheltered spot below the tree line, made dinner, and watched the sun set over the peaks. The temperature dropped fast after dark, probably down to around 0, but I was in my sleeping bag in my 4-season tent and I was comfortable. I fell asleep to the sound of wind moving through the spruce trees above me. I woke up the next morning to clouds, heavy grey clouds that hadn't been in the forecast, the kind that means snow is coming. I checked my weather radio and sure enough, there was a winter storm warning that had been issued overnight. Fast-moving system coming in from the west, expected to drop 8 to 12 inches with wind gusts up to 40 miles per hour. Supposed to hit by early afternoon. I had a decision to make. I could turn around and hike out, probably make it back to my car before the storm hit. Or I could push forward to my planned photo location, another 7 miles, and hope the storm wasn't as bad as predicted. In retrospect, it was a stupid decision, but I'd come all this way. I'd invested all this time and energy, and I really wanted those shots. So I packed up and kept going. The clouds got heavier as the morning wore on, and by 11 a.m., the first snowflakes started falling. Big, fat flakes that stuck to everything. Within an hour, visibility had dropped to maybe 100 yards. The wind picked up, the temperature dropped, and I realized I'd made a serious mistake. I should have turned back right then, but I was already 6 miles from my previous camp, and turning around meant hiking directly into the wind. I convinced myself I could keep pushing forward, get to the location I'd been aiming for, and find somewhere to shelter for the night. The storm would blow through and I'd be fine. But the storm didn't blow through, it got worse. By 2 p.m. visibility was down to maybe 50 feet. The wind was howling, snow was coming down so hard I could barely see my own feet. And the temperature, God, the temperature. It must have been 20 below at that point with the wind chill. My face felt like it was being scraped with razors. My hands were going numb even inside my gloves. I knew I was in trouble. Real trouble. The kind of trouble that gets your name in the news, followed by phrases like experienced hiker and died from exposure. I needed shelter, fast, but there was nothing. Just endless forest and snow and wind. I kept moving because stopping meant dying. I lost track of time, lost track of direction. My GPS still worked, but the screen kept freezing over and I had to keep wiping it. I was moving on pure instinct, just putting one snowshoe in front of the other, just staying upright, just staying alive. And then through the blowing snow I saw it. A structure, dark wood, rectangular, about the size of a small cabin. I thought I was hallucinating, seeing things I wanted to see. But I moved toward it and it stayed solid. Real. A cabin in the middle of nowhere, miles from any marked trail or known structure. The cabin was old, really old. The logs were weathered almost black. The windows were thick with frost. But the door opened when I pushed it, and I practically fell inside out of the wind. The interior was pitch dark. I pulled out my headlamp and looked around. Single room, maybe 12 by 12 feet. A wooden bunk against one wall. A small table and chair. An old wood stove in the corner. No modern amenities, no solar panels, no propane tanks, just basic shelter. I dropped my pack and tried the stove. To my amazement, there was wood already stacked beside it. Dry wood. Like someone had been here recently and left it. I got a fire started and within minutes the cabin was beginning to warm up. I couldn't believe my luck. I'd stumbled onto some old Forest Service cabin, or maybe a trapper's shelter. Something that wasn't on modern maps but had been here for decades. As I thawed out and my heart rate returned to normal, I started looking around more carefully. That's when I noticed the weird things. Small things at first. The windows. They were thick with frost on the inside, but I could see handprints in the frost. Small handprints, child-sized. Like someone had been pressing their hands against the glass from inside. Multiple handprints, all over every window. The bunk had a blanket on it, old wool, rough weave. I touched it, and it was still slightly warm, like someone had been lying there recently. But there were no tracks outside, no sign anyone had been here. The snow around the cabin was undisturbed except for my own trail leading up to the door. On the table there was a tin cup. I picked it up and it was half full of water. The water wasn't frozen, which meant it had been put there recently, within the last few hours. But that was impossible. I'd seen no one, no tracks, no signs of life. I told myself I was overthinking it. Someone had been here, maybe a day ago, maybe 2. The storm had just covered their tracks. The warmth in the blanket was probably just residual heat from the stove. The water in the cup hadn't frozen because the cabin was insulated well. All rational explanations. But then I found the calendar. It was hanging on the wall beside the stove. One of those old-fashioned paper calendars. The kind that shows 1 month per page. It was turned to February 2024. This month, this year. And there were marks on it. X's drawn through specific dates. The dates marked went from February 1st through yesterday, February 14th, every single day marked with a careful black X, except there was no mark for today, February 15th. Today's date was blank. I stared at that calendar and felt something cold run down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. Someone had been marking the days. Someone had been here yesterday, and they were coming back. I should have left right then. Should have gone back out into the storm. But it was getting dark and the temperature was still dropping, and going back outside meant almost certain death. So I stayed. I told myself I'd leave at first light. I'd survive the night and hike out in the morning and never think about this cabin again. I ate dinner from my supplies, boiled water for tea on the wood stove, fed the fire. The cabin stayed warm. almost too warm. I had to take off my jacket and my hat. Outside, the wind screamed and snow battered the walls, but inside it was comfortable, safe, which should have felt good, but instead it felt wrong. Like the cabin was too eager to keep me warm, too eager to keep me there. Around 8 p.m., the fire started to die down. I went to add more wood, and that's when I saw there was writing on the underside of the logs, scratched into the wood with something sharp. Names, dozens of names, each one with a date beside it. Sarah Mitchell, January 1998. James Kowalski, March 2001. Maria Santos, December 2005. Robert Chen, February 2010. The list went on. Maybe 30 names, maybe more, all with dates going back decades. And at the bottom, freshest and deepest, carved so recently the wood was still pale. Rebecca Morrison. Just my name. No date. Like someone had started carving it and stopped halfway through, like they were waiting to finish it. I dropped the log. My hands were shaking. This was wrong. All of this was wrong. The cabin, the calendar, the names. Someone knew I was coming. Someone had been expecting me. I grabbed my pack and started throwing my gear inside. I didn't care about the storm. I didn't care about the temperature. I needed out of that cabin. But when I tried the door, it wouldn't open. The handle turned, but the door wouldn't budge, like something was holding it shut from the outside. I threw my weight against it. Nothing. The door was solid, and then I heard it. Footsteps, walking around the outside of the cabin, slow and deliberate, crunching through snow, circling. The same way the footsteps had circled Emily and David's tent. Someone was out there, in the storm, in the darkness, walking around the cabin. I turned off my headlamp, pressed myself against the wall beside the door. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might burst. The footsteps kept circling, around and around, never stopping, never speeding up. Just that steady crunch, crunch, crunch. And then they stopped, right outside the door, and I heard breathing. Heavy breathing, like someone who'd been running, or something that didn't quite know how to breathe right. The door handle started to turn, slowly, from the outside. I watched it rotate in the dim firelight, and every muscle in my body locked up. The handle turned all the way and the door pushed inward an inch, 2 inches, and then it stopped. A voice came from outside, thin and reedy, like wind through hollow wood. Rebecca Morrison, it said. February 15th, 2024. And then the door slammed shut so hard the entire cabin shook. I don't know how long I stood there. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. Eventually I heard the footsteps again, moving away this time, fading into the storm. And when they were gone, I ran to the door and pulled, and this time it opened. I burst out into the night, into the wind and snow, and I didn't stop. I didn't even grab my pack, I just ran, snowshoes and all. I ran through that storm like hell was behind me, and maybe it was. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out, and I collapsed in the snow. When I came to, I was lying in a snowbank maybe 2 miles from the cabin based on my GPS. The storm had passed. It was morning, grey early light filtering through the clouds, and I was hypothermic, badly hypothermic. I could barely move my fingers, could barely think, but I was alive. It took me 8 hours to make it back to my car. 8 hours of stumbling through deep snow in a daze. I don't remember most of it. I just remember the parking lot finally appearing through the trees and me falling against my car door and managing to get inside and start the engine. I drove to Red Lodge and checked into a motel and slept for 16 hours straight. When I woke up, I went to the Forest Service office and asked about old cabins in the Beartooth area. The ranger looked at me like I was crazy. There are no cabins in that area, he said. No structures at all, just wilderness. I showed him my GPS coordinates. He looked them up on his map and shook his head. Nothing there, he said, just forest, but I was there. I was in that cabin, I saw the names, I heard the footsteps, and I know that somewhere in those mountains there's a cabin that shouldn't exist. A cabin that's warm even in the coldest storms. A cabin that collects names. I haven't been back. I don't think I ever will. But sometimes late at night I think about that calendar, about the date that wasn't marked. February 15th, 2024. My date. The day I was supposed to stay. the day my name was supposed to be completed. And I think about all those other names carved in the wood. All those other photographers and hikers and wanderers who found shelter in that cabin, who thought they were lucky, who thought they were saved. And I wonder how many of them made it back out, how many of them woke up the next morning and managed to run, and how many of them are still there, still warming themselves by that fire, still waiting for their date to be marked on the calendar. Because here's what keeps me up at night. When I collapsed in the snow that morning, when I was lying there barely conscious, I could have sworn I saw someone standing over me, a figure in dark clothes, tall and thin, and they were holding something, a knife maybe, or a carving tool, and they were looking down at me like they were disappointed, like I'd left before they could finish their work. I still do photography, still do winter landscape work, but I don't camp alone anymore, and I never go off trail, because I know that cabin is out there waiting, and it knows my name, and it knows I got away, and I don't think it's going to let that happen twice. My name is Marcus Webb, and I'm a software engineer from Boulder, Colorado. I'm part of what my friends jokingly call the Ski Bums, a group of 5 guys who've been friends since college and who try to get out to the mountains at least once a month during winter. We're all in our early 30s now, all have decent jobs and families, but we still make time for these trips. It's our thing, our tradition, or at least it was until what happened last December. I'm telling you this story because I need someone else to know what we saw out there. I need to put it into words even though I know how it's going to sound. I know some of you are going to think we panicked over nothing or that we let the isolation get to us. But we found Jake. We found him in those woods, and he wasn't alone. And the thing that was with him, the thing that brought him back to us, I don't think it was trying to help. The 5 of us, me, Jake, Tyler, David, and Chris, had planned this trip back in October. We were going to do a winter camping excursion in the San Juan Mountains near Silverton. 3 days, 2 nights. Not too hardcore, but challenging enough to feel like an adventure. We'd all been winter camping before, separately or in smaller groups, but this was the first time all 5 of us were going together since we graduated from CU Boulder back in 2015. We drove down from Boulder on Friday, December 15th, got to Silverton around 2 p.m. and started hiking from the Kendall Mountain Trailhead. The plan was to hike about 6 miles to this basin area Jake had found on all trails where we could set up a base camp. The weather was perfect, bluebird skies, temperature around 28 degrees, fresh powder from a storm 2 days prior. Everything you could want for winter camping. The hike in was beautiful, fresh snow on everything, mountains rising all around us. That clean, cold air that makes you feel alive. We were in good spirits, joking around, talking trash like we always do. Jake was leading because he'd studied the route the most. He's always been that guy, the planner, the one who makes sure we don't do anything stupid. Well, usually anyway. We made it to the basin by about 5 p.m., right as the sun was starting to drop behind the peaks. We set up our tents, 3 two-person tents in a triangle configuration, and got the camp stove going to make dinner. Tyler had brought this ridiculous amount of food, including steaks that we cooked on a portable grill. It was excessive and perfect. We ate like kings and watched the stars come out. No moon that night, so the Milky Way was incredible. You don't get skies like that near the city. Around 9 p.m. we were all in our tents. I was sharing with Chris. Jake and Tyler were in another tent. David was by himself in the third, because he snores like a freight train and none of us wanted to deal with that. We were all exhausted from the hike and the altitude. We were camping at about 11,500 feet, so we fell asleep quick. I woke up to Chris shaking me. My watch said 2:47 a.m. "Dude," Chris was whispering, "Jake's gone." "What?" "Jake. Tyler just came over. Says Jake went out to pee like an hour ago and never came back." I sat up, suddenly wide awake. We crawled out of the tent and found Tyler and David already outside with their headlamps on. Tyler looked worried. "He said he had to piss and took his headlamp and left," Tyler was saying. "I fell back asleep and just woke up and realized he still wasn't back." We called Jake's name, no response. We fanned out from camp, staying within sight of each other, searching in widening circles. No sign of him, No tracks beyond about 30 feet from camp because the wind had started picking up and was drifting snow around. Maybe he got disoriented, David said. Went the wrong direction and couldn't find his way back. It was possible. Even experienced people can get turned around in the dark, especially at altitude when your brain isn't getting full oxygen. But Jake had his headlamp. He should have been able to see our camp, unless something had happened to him, unless he'd fallen, or worse. We spent the next 2 hours searching. The wind got stronger, temperature dropped. We were calling his name over and over, but the wind just whipped our voices away. Around 5 a.m. we made the decision to hike back out and get help, call search and rescue, but we wanted to wait until first light so we could see better, see if maybe we could spot him from a higher vantage point. As soon as the sun came up, we climbed to the ridge above our basin. From up there you could see for miles, fresh snow everywhere, and that's when David spotted him. There! He was pointing at a spot maybe half a mile away, down in a small draw between two ridges. There was definitely someone down there, a figure in dark clothes moving slowly through the snow. We practically ran down the ridge, slipping and sliding in the powder, calling Jake's name. The figure kept moving but didn't respond to our calls. As we got closer, I could see it was definitely a person, definitely wearing the same dark blue jacket Jake had been wearing. But something about the way they were moving seemed wrong. Too stiff, too mechanical. We were maybe 100 yards away when the figure stopped and turned toward us. It was Jake. I could see his face, but he wasn't moving like Jake. He was just standing there, arms at his sides, face blank, and behind him, maybe 20 feet back in the trees, there was someone else. Another figure, taller than Jake, wearing what looked like white or light gray clothing that blended with the snow. I couldn't make out details because of the distance and the way the morning light was hitting the snow, but I could see the shape. Humanoid, tall, just standing there watching Jake, watching us. "Jake!" Tyler yelled. "You okay, man?" Jake didn't respond, didn't move. The other figure behind him took a step closer to Jake, and that's when I realized something was really wrong, because the figure's movement wasn't right. It wasn't walking the way a person walks. It was gliding, like its feet weren't quite touching the snow. We got within 50 feet and stopped. Something in my gut was screaming at me not to get any closer. Tyler must have felt it too because he grabbed my arm. "Something's wrong," he said quietly. Jake's mouth opened, and he spoke. But it didn't sound like Jake. The voice was flat, toneless, like a recording. "I got lost," the voice said. "I couldn't find camp. This person helped me. They're bringing me back." "Jake, who is that behind you?" David asked. Jake's head turned to look back at the figure, turned too far, at an angle that made my skin crawl. No one's neck should bend like that. "My friend," Jake said in that same flat voice. "They helped me. They want to help all of us." The tall figure behind Jake moved forward, and as it came out of the trees into better light, I could see more details, and I wish I hadn't. It was wearing clothes, layers of white and gray fabric, old-looking, weathered. But underneath I could see skin, or what looked like skin. Pale, too pale. And the face. God, the face. It had features that were almost human, eyes and nose and mouth in roughly the right places. But the proportions were wrong. Eyes too far apart, mouth too wide. And when it smiled at us, I saw teeth. Too many teeth. All sharp. "We should go," Chris said. His voice was shaking. "We should go right now." "We can't leave Jake," Tyler said. "That's not Jake," I heard myself say. "Look at him, that's not Jake anymore." But it was Jake. His face, his body, just moving wrong, being wrong. And that thing behind him was getting closer. I could hear it breathing now, or something like breathing, a whistling sound like wind through a crack. "Jake," David tried one more time. "Come with us, man, we need to get back to camp." Jake's head tilted to one side, that inhuman angle again. "I am coming with you," he said. "My friend is coming too. They want to meet everyone." And then Jake started walking toward us, and the thing behind him started gliding forward too, keeping pace. And we ran. All four of us. We just turned and ran back the way we'd come. I could hear Tyler shouting at us to stop, that we couldn't leave Jake, but none of us stopped. We just ran. We made it back to camp in probably record time, threw our gear into our packs with shaking hands, started hiking out. We didn't talk, didn't look back, just moved as fast as we could down the trail. About a mile from our camp, Chris stopped. "Where's David?" We all turned around. David wasn't with us. The four of us, me, Chris, Tyler, and... I counted again. 3 people, me, Chris, and Tyler. David was gone. When had he disappeared? Had he fallen behind? Had something taken him? I couldn't remember seeing him after we left camp. "We have to go back," Tyler said. "No," I said. "No, we keep moving." We get to the trailhead and we call for help. We argued for maybe 30 seconds, and then we heard it, someone calling from behind us on the trail. "Guys, wait up," David's voice. We turned, and there he was, coming around the bend maybe 50 yards back, smiling, waving. "Why'd you leave me behind, assholes?" He looked normal, moved normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. "Where were you?" I called back. "Had to tie my boot," David said, still smiling. "You guys were moving so fast." He got closer. 30 yards, 20, and I saw Tyler's face go pale. "David," Tyler said quietly, "when did you start wearing glasses?" David touched his face, like he'd forgotten he was wearing them. "What, I always wear glasses." "No," Tyler said. "You got LASIK 2 years ago. You don't wear glasses anymore." David's smile didn't change, didn't even flicker. "Must have forgotten," he said, and he kept walking toward us. And behind him, back on the trail, I could see another figure, tall, pale, gliding forward through the snow. We ran again, left David there on the trail, still smiling, still wearing glasses he shouldn't have had. We ran all the way to the trailhead parking lot, threw our gear in Tyler's truck and drove. Didn't stop until we hit Silverton, went straight to the sheriff's office. We told them everything. Our friends were missing, something in the woods. They looked at us like we were crazy or drunk or both, but they sent search and rescue out anyway, spent 3 days combing that area, found our camp, found our equipment, found footprints leading away from the camp in multiple directions, but they never found Jake, never found David. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just gone. The official report said they likely got separated from the group and succumbed to exposure, that their bodies would probably turn up in the spring when the snow melted. They even implied that maybe we'd had some kind of falling out, that maybe Tyler and Chris and I knew more than we were saying, but we didn't. We told them exactly what happened. They just didn't believe us. And honestly, I don't blame them. If someone told me this story, I wouldn't believe it either. Tyler, Chris, and I don't talk about it anymore. We barely talk to each other, period. The whole thing destroyed our friendship. Tyler still insists we should have gone back for them, that we abandoned our friends. Chris thinks we didn't see what we thought we saw. That altitude and panic made us hallucinate. And me, I don't know what to think. I just know what I saw. I saw Jake with something behind him, something that had changed him somehow, made him wrong. And I saw whatever was wearing David's shape, wearing his clothes and his smile, but getting the details wrong. Not quite human, not quite wry. And sometimes late at night I wonder if we actually made it out. If the thing that was with Jake and David, if it followed us. If maybe when we ran, when we split up and regrouped, if maybe it slipped into one of us, put on one of our faces, started moving our limbs, started smiling with our mouths. And sometimes I look at Chris or Tyler and I think I see something off, something in the way they move or talk or look at me. And I wonder if they're really them, or if they're something else wearing their shape, wearing their glasses, getting almost all the details right, but not quite all of them. And I look in the mirror and I wonder if I'm really me, if I made it out of those mountains, or if I'm still up there in that basin and something else is here in my apartment, wearing my face and typing these words. And the worst part is, I'll never know. None of us will. Because whatever it was up there in those mountains, it was good enough at being human that we can't tell the difference. Jake and David are still listed as missing, presumed dead. But I don't think they're dead. I think they're somewhere in those mountains, and I think they're changing, becoming something else, something that looks human and moves human and talks human, but isn't, not anymore. And in a few months, when spring comes and the snow melts, when the trails open up again, I think they're going to walk out of those mountains. I think they're going to go home to their families, to their wives and their kids. And no one is going to know. No one is going to see that something is wrong, because whatever took them, whatever changed them, it's patient. And it's good at what it does, and it's been practicing, and I think it's been practicing for a very long time. My name is Sarah Patterson, and I've been a backcountry ranger for Rocky Mountain National Park for the past 12 years. I'm based out of the Wild Basin Ranger Station, which covers the southeastern section of the park. It's one of the quieter areas, especially in winter when most of the park gets shut down to vehicle traffic. I'm telling you this, so you understand, I'm not some tourist who got scared by wildlife. I've spent literally thousands of nights alone in the backcountry. I know what belongs out here and what doesn't. And the thing that's been visiting my cabin for the past 3 winters doesn't belong. I know how this is going to sound. I know some of you are going to think it's a bear, or a mountain lion, or just my imagination. But I'm a trained observer. I document everything. I have protocols and procedures. And what I'm about to tell you is documented in my official ranger logs, even though I know my supervisors don't believe me. Even though they think I've been out here alone too long. The first time it happened was January of 2023. I'd been staying at the Thunder Lake Patrol Cabin, which is about 6 miles from the nearest trailhead. The cabin is small, maybe 200 square feet, but it's solid. Built in the 1930s by the CCC, thick log walls, wood stove, propane cook stove, 2 bunk beds. No electricity, but there's solar panels for charging radios and phones. It's rustic, but it's home during my winter patrols. I was on a 10-day rotation. I'd been at the cabin for 4 days, and everything had been routine. I'd been snowshoeing the area, checking for signs of poaching, maintaining emergency supply caches, documenting wildlife, standard stuff. On the 4th night, I made dinner, filled out my reports by lamplight, and went to bed around 9 p.m. I woke up sometime after midnight to the sound of something walking on the cabin roof. Heavy footsteps moving from one end to the other. Not running, walking, deliberately, like someone pacing. My first thought was mountain lion. They sometimes do that in winter, walk on structures, checking for a way in or just being curious. But the footsteps were too heavy, too bipedal, too steady. I lay in my bunk listening. The steps went back and forth across the roof maybe a dozen times. Then they stopped, right above my head. And I heard what sounded like scratching, like fingernails on wood. Except the scratching was too loud, too forceful. Whatever was making that sound was gouging deep into the logs. I grabbed my flashlight and my radio and got out of bed. The cabin felt colder than it should have. The wood stove was still going. I could see the orange glow through the vents, but the air felt wrong, too still, too heavy, like pressure before a storm. The scratching stopped, and then I heard something that made every hair on my body stand up. Someone knocked on the roof. 3 slow knocks, deliberate, like someone was announcing their presence. I didn't respond. I stood in the middle of the cabin with my flashlight pointed at the ceiling, and I didn't make a sound. After maybe 30 seconds, the knocking came again. 3 knocks, same rhythm, same force, and then a voice. "Ranger Patterson?" It knew my name. The voice came from above, from the roof, but it sounded like it was coming from everywhere at once. Male, deep, neutral tone, like someone reading from a script. "Ranger Patterson? Are you home?" I didn't answer. Every training I'd ever received said don't engage with threats. Don't confirm you're alone. Don't give information. Just call for help on the radio and wait. But when I looked at my radio, the battery was dead, which was impossible. I'd charged it that morning. It had been fully charged when I went to bed. "I know you're home, Ranger Patterson. I can see your light." The footsteps started moving again, walking to the edge of the roof. And then I heard them coming down, not jumping, climbing, like someone was carefully lowering themselves down the side of the cabin. I moved to the door and checked the lock. Solid. Then I checked both windows, both shut tight. No way anyone was getting in without breaking something. I grabbed my hunting knife from my pack and positioned myself in the center of the cabin where I could see both the door and windows. The footsteps circled the cabin all the way around, and then they stopped at the door. I could hear breathing, heavy, wet, like someone who'd been running, or something that didn't quite know how breathing worked. The door handle rattled. Someone was trying it, testing it, and then the voice again. "Ranger Patterson, I need to come inside. It's very cold out here." I stayed silent. The door handle stopped rattling, and then whoever or whatever was out there started knocking again. Not 3 knocks this time. Constant knocking. Over and over. Steady rhythm, like a heartbeat, getting louder. The whole door was shaking, and then it stopped. Complete silence. I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5. Nothing. I moved to the window and looked out into the darkness. My flashlight beam cut through the night, but I couldn't see anyone. Just snow and trees and shadows. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat in the chair with my knife and flashlight, and I waited for dawn. When the sun came up, I grabbed my snowshoes and went outside to look for tracks. There were marks in the snow around the cabin. Boot prints, size 13 or 14 based on the dimensions, but the stride length was wrong. The prints were spaced too far apart, like whatever made them had legs longer than normal human proportions. The prints came from the woods, circled the cabin, and then went back into the woods. I followed them for maybe a quarter mile until they just stopped, middle of a clearing. No trees nearby to climb, no rocks to hide behind. The tracks just ended like whatever made them had stepped off the earth. I radioed my supervisor when I got back to the cabin, told him what happened. He said it was probably a lost hiker trying to get help, asked why I didn't let them in. I explained about the voice, the way it knew my name, the tracks that didn't make sense. He said I should file a report, but he didn't sound concerned. Said people do strange things in winter. Said isolation can make you paranoid. But I wasn't paranoid, and it happened again 3 weeks later, same thing, middle of the night. Footsteps on the roof, scratching, knocking, and that voice. "Ranger Patterson, are you home?" And it's happened every winter since. Usually 2 or 3 times per season, always at night, always when I'm alone at the Thunder Lake cabin, always the same pattern. Footsteps, scratching, knocking, that voice asking if I'm home. And each time the voice gets more insistent, more demanding, like whatever is out there is getting frustrated that I won't open the door. The last time was 2 weeks ago, end of January 2025. It knocked for 3 hours straight, non-stop. The entire cabin was shaking, and the voice kept saying my name over and over. "Ranger Patterson, Ranger Patterson, Ranger Patterson," like a chant, like a prayer. And then it said something new, something that made me realize this thing, whatever it is, it's not just curious, it's hunting. "I know you're afraid, Ranger Patterson. I can smell your fear. I can hear your heartbeat. I can taste your breath in the air. And one night you're going to make a mistake. You're going to leave the door unlocked or a window open, or you're going to be so tired you won't hear me coming. And when that happens, I'm going to come inside, and we're finally going to meet. I've requested reassignment, asked to be moved to a different patrol area. My supervisor said no, says I'm one of the most experienced winter rangers, and Thunder Lake needs consistent coverage. Says there's no evidence of any actual threat, just tracks and sounds that could be explained by wildlife or acoustics or stress. But I know what I've heard. I know what I've seen. And I know that whatever visits my cabin, it's not going away. It's not a bear or a lost hiker or my imagination. It's something else. Something that knows my name. Something that's patient. Something that's waiting. And the worst part is I don't think I'm the first ranger it's visited. Last month I was going through old patrol logs from the 1990s. I found entries from a ranger named Michael Reeves who used to work this same patrol area. His logs from January of 1997 mention strange sounds at night, footsteps on the roof, a voice calling his name. He filed multiple reports about it, and then in February of 1997, the logs just stop. He's listed as having quit the Park Service. No forwarding information, no resignation letter on file. Just gone. I called the Park Service regional office trying to track him down. They said they have no record of him past February 1997, no retirement paperwork. No forwarding address, no next of kin listed. It's like he vanished. And I think about that every time I hear footsteps on my roof, every time that voice calls my name. I think about Michael Reeves, and I wonder if he's still out there in those woods, if he finally opened his door one night, if he finally let it in, and if whatever took him is the same thing that's been visiting me. Because here's what really scares me. Last week I found something while I was snowshoeing near the cabin, a piece of fabric snagged on a branch, dark green. Park Service issued jacket material, the kind we wore in the 1990s. We don't use that material anymore. And when I looked close, I could see something written on the fabric in faded marker. A name tag, Reeves, Michael Reeves's jacket, or what's left of it, hanging on a branch half a mile from my cabin, like someone had been wearing it recently and it had gotten caught. Like someone was out there in the woods wearing a ranger's jacket, walking in ranger's boots, learning how to be human. I reported it. Supervisor said it was probably abandoned decades ago. Said fabric can last a long time in cold, dry conditions. Says I'm reading too much into coincidences. But I know what I found, and I know what it means. That thing out there, it's not just visiting anymore. It's preparing. It's practicing, wearing clothes, learning to speak, knocking on doors, asking permission, like it's trying to figure out the rules, figure out how humans act, how humans move, what humans say. And when it's ready, when it's perfected the performance, I don't think it's going to knock anymore. I think it's going to have my voice, my face, my uniform, and it's going to walk out of these mountains and no one is going to know. No one is going to see that something is wrong. Because it's been watching me for 3 years, learning my patterns, my mannerisms, the way I walk and talk and move. It knows everything about me. And when it's ready, it's going to become me. And the real Sarah Patterson is going to disappear just like Michael Reeves, just another ranger who quit without notice, just another name in an old patrol log. I'm finishing this patrol rotation tonight. I'm packing my gear and hiking out tomorrow at first light. And I'm not coming back. I don't care if they fire me. I don't care if they think I'm crazy. I'm not spending another night in that cabin, because last night it knocked again. And this time when it spoke, it didn't use that flat rehearsed voice. It used my voice, perfect mimicry, every inflection, every tone. "Ranger Patterson," it said in my own voice, "are you home? It's me, Sarah. I need to come inside." And I stood there in that cabin, listening to my own voice calling to me from outside, and I realized it's ready. It's finally ready. It doesn't need practice anymore. It's perfected the performance. And tomorrow when I hike out, I wonder if that's actually going to be me walking down that trail. Or if it's going to be something else wearing my face, wearing my uniform, going back to civilization, to my apartment, my life, my family. And I'll be the one left behind in those woods, the one knocking on cabin doors in the middle of the night, the one calling names, the one trying to figure out how to be human. Because maybe that's how it works. Maybe it doesn't just take you. Maybe it trades places with you. And the thing that visits cabins at night, the thing that calls rangers names, maybe that's not a monster. Maybe it's just the previous ranger, the one who came before, Michael Reeves, still trying to get back inside, still trying to get home. And tomorrow I'm going to leave this cabin and hike to the trailhead and get in my truck and drive away. But I won't know if it's really me doing it, or if I'm the one who stays behind, the one who becomes the thing that knocks. And that's the worst part. Not knowing if you're you anymore, not knowing if you made it out or if you're still there, still waiting, still calling your own name from outside the door.